Welcome, my favorite people, the rare gems. The moment you stop caring about what doesn't serve you, you become unstoppable. There comes a point when a Sigma female simply stops caring, not out of bitterness, not out of spite, but because she's done. Done explaining herself, done tolerating nonsense, done wasting energy on people and situations that drain her. And when that moment arrives, it's not loud or dramatic, it's quiet, it's final, and it's frightening, not for her, but for those who took her presence for granted. If you're a Sigma female, you know this feeling. You've spent years being the one who listens, who understands, who gives chances. You've mastered the art of resilience, of holding things together while others fall apart. But strength isn't just about endurance, it's about knowing when to walk away. When you stop caring, it's not a sign of weakness. It's proof that you finally understand your own worth. Let them call you cold. Let them wonder what happened. The truth? You evolved. You realized that caring about the wrong things was holding you back, and now you're free. Number 1, you lose access to the best parts of her. When a Sigma female cares, she gives in a way that most people don't. She listens with intention, not just to respond, but to understand. She offers insights that cut through confusion like a blade, seeing angles you never considered. She's the kind of person who remembers the things you casually mention and brings them up months later, proving she was paying attention. She's a safe place, a rare kind of presence that makes you feel truly seen. But the moment she stops caring, that door slams shut. It's not just her presence you lose, it's everything that came with it. The late-night conversations where she helped you figure out your life. The quiet strength she gave when you were at your worst. The way she defended you when you weren't in the room. All of it disappears like it was never there. And suddenly you realize just how much she brought into your world. The chilling part? She won't make a scene. She won't announce her departure or beg you to change. She simply withdraws, one layer at a time, until there's nothing left. And by the time you notice, it's far too late. The warmth is gone. The deep, soul-nourishing connection, erased. You might think you can replace her, find someone else to fill that void. But here's the truth. People like her don't come around often. She wasn't just there. She added to your life in ways you didn't even recognize until she was no longer there. And once she's gone, you'll feel the difference, the depth, the insight, the quiet but unwavering support. It won't be there anymore. You had access to something rare, and now you don't. And that realization, it stings. Number 2, she's seen the worst, and it doesn't scare her anymore. There was a time when betrayal shook her, when disappointment hit deep, when toxic behavior made her question herself. But that version of her, she doesn't exist anymore. A Sigma female doesn't just endure hardship, she learns from it. She dissects every painful experience, studies the patterns, and comes out the other side stronger, sharper, and more detached. So by the time you think you've broken her, she's already rebuilt herself. She's been through the mind games, the lies, the people who swore they were different only to prove they were just like the rest. She's felt the sting of being used, underestimated, and taken for granted. And instead of letting it destroy her, she's turned every scar into a lesson, every betrayal into armor, every loss into liberation. And now, nothing surprises her anymore. Nothing gets under her skin the way it used to. She's seen the worst, processed the pain, and realized one undeniable truth. She doesn't need anyone who doesn't value her. That's when she becomes untouchable. She no longer fears losing people. She no longer clings to what's not meant for her. She doesn't beg, explain, or chase. She chooses who gets access to her world, and she has no problem shutting the door on anything that threatens her peace. And the most terrifying part? She doesn't do it with anger. There's no need for revenge, no dramatic exit, just quiet, absolute indifference. She simply moves on, and that's what makes her so powerful. Because once a Sigma female realizes she can survive without you, there's nothing you can do to regain the hold you thought you had over her. And that realization, that's what truly scares people. Number 3, your words no longer reach her. There was a time when your words had weight, when she listened, analyzed, and even let them affect her. Whether it was insults meant to break her, guilt trips designed to manipulate her, or sweet talk meant to pull her back in. She heard it all. But now, it's just background noise. Nothing you say gets through because she's already checked out. When a Sigma female stops caring, it's not an emotional reaction, it's a decision. A quiet, deliberate choice to disconnect. And once she makes that choice, your words lose all power. You could try to provoke her, push her buttons, or remind her of the past. You could try to guilt her into staying, convincing her that she's being too cold or too harsh. You could even attempt to charm her back, saying all the right things, hoping to trigger the emotions she once felt for you. But you'll notice something unsettling. She doesn't react. No anger, no sadness, no interest, because she's already detached. She sees through every attempt to manipulate her emotions. She's played this game before, and she knows how it ends. So instead of engaging, she lets your words pass through her like smoke, meaningless, empty, irrelevant. That's what makes her so dangerous. Most people rely on words to pull someone back in, to fix what's broken, to regain control. But with her, there's no way back. She's already decided that your words no longer matter. And when a Sigma female no longer listens, you don't just lose her attention, you lose her completely, irrevocably, and no amount of talking will ever change that. Number 4. She becomes ice cold, but not bitter. There's a difference between walking away in anger and walking away in absolute indifference. A Sigma female doesn't leave with bitterness, resentment, or a need for revenge. She doesn't dwell on what happened, replaying scenarios in her head, wondering what she could have done differently. No. When she's done, and she moves forward with a level of calm that's downright chilling. People expect a reaction. They expect drama, tears, or even rage. But what they get instead is silence. A cold, effortless detachment that makes it painfully clear she no longer cares. Not because she's heartless, but because she refuses to let past disappointments control her. Bitterness is what happens when people hold on to pain. It festers, it poisons, it turns them into someone consumed by what was. But a Sigma female, she doesn't carry dead weight. She processes, she learns, and then she lets go. Completely. That's what makes her so unsettling to those who once had access to her heart. They expect her to lash out, to seek closure, to demand explanations. Instead, she simply disengages. And that's far more powerful. She doesn't waste time proving a point. She doesn't need you to understand why she left. She doesn't even need an apology. The emotional connection has been severed, and that's the end of it. But don't mistake her composure for weakness. She's not suppressing emotions. She's transcended them. What once had the power to hurt her no longer even touches her. She isn't cold because she's broken. She's cold because she healed. And that's the most terrifying thing of all. Because when a Sigma female reaches this level of detachment, there's nothing you can say or do to bring her back. Number 5. She's done explaining what should be obvious. There was a time when she believed in clarity. When she thought if she just explained herself better, if she just spelled it out, people would finally get it. She gave chances, she had patience. She walked people through what should have been basic understanding. Respect, loyalty, decency. But at some point she realized if someone still doesn't get it, it's not because they can't. It's because they won't. And that's when she stops wasting her breath. A Sigma female doesn't argue over fundamental values. She doesn't sit down and debate why she deserves respect. She doesn't plead for basic loyalty. She doesn't beg people to be decent. These things should be a given, not a negotiation. And if someone refuses to meet her at that level, she doesn't try to change them. She simply leaves. She won't engage in endless discussions about why she deserves better. She won't waste energy justifying her standards. She won't break down the concept of basic human decency like a teacher explaining it to a child, because at this stage in her life she knows anyone who needs that level of explanation isn't someone she needs in her world. So she stops talking, stops explaining, stops arguing. And that's what shakes people the most. They expect to fight. They expect her to stay and prove her worth. But instead, she goes silent, not because she's given up, but because she's moved on. And here's the thing. When a Sigma female stops explaining, it's over. No more second chances, no more justifications, no more hand-holding. She won't teach you how to treat her. She won't convince you to be better, because if you don't already understand, you never will. And she has zero interest in sticking around to find out. Number 6. They understand that freedom is a lonely road. Freedom isn't what most people think it is. It's not just doing whatever you want. It's breaking away from expectations, refusing to be controlled, and carving a path that most wouldn't dare to walk. And Sigma females, they understand this better than anyone. At first, she tried to blend in. She tried to meet people halfway, to keep connections, to entertain conversations that felt off just for the sake of belonging. But eventually she realized true independence comes with a price. And that price? Isolation. When she stops seeking approval, she loses the people who needed her to conform. When she cuts through the nonsense, she exposes those who thrive on illusion. When she stops playing along, she becomes a threat to the system. And that's when the loneliness sets in. She sees the truth. Most people don't want freedom. They want security. They want comfort. They want the illusion of choice without the responsibility that comes with it. But she'd rather be alone with her own thoughts than surrounded by people who are prisoners of theirs. So she lets go. She stops explaining herself to people who refuse to understand. She stops trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for her. She stops seeking validation from a world that punishes those who refuse to follow the script. And in doing so, she becomes something terrifying, untouchable. Her silence speaks louder than arguments. Her absence is felt more than her presence ever was, and her indifference? That's the final goodbye. Because when a Sigma female stops caring, it's not temporary. It's not a test. It's a decision. And once she makes it, there's no turning back. True freedom is a lonely road, but for her, it's the only road worth walking. Number 7. They see that most people are just repeats of each other. Sigma females observe the world with a sharp, unfiltered lens. They don't just look at people, they study them, their words, their actions, their patterns. And after a while, they start noticing something unsettling. Most people are just copies of one another. Same opinions, recycled from whatever's trending. Same fears, keeping them trapped in the same cycles. Same conversations, predictable and empty. At first, she tries to engage. She listens. She asks questions. She searches for depth, but the more she looks, the more she realizes originality is rare. Authenticity is nearly extinct. Most people don't think for themselves. They borrow their ideas from the loudest voices around them. They don't live with purpose. They just follow the script society hands them. And that's when she disconnects. She doesn't waste energy arguing with people who parrot opinions they've never questioned. She doesn't try to fit into spaces that reward conformity over individuality. She doesn't pretend to relate to conversations that go in circles, never leading anywhere real. She craves uniqueness, depth, original thought. And when she doesn't find it in the people around her, she pulls away, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. She chooses solitude over shallow company, books over gossip, meaningful experiences over empty routines. While others are busy blending in, she is busy becoming herself. And this is why she feels alone in a crowded room. It's not loneliness, it's disconnection. She sees the world for what it is, a cycle of repetition where people live on autopilot, afraid to break free, and instead of trying to change them, she detaches completely, because she refuses to be just another repeat. Number 8. They've been used as emotional dumping grounds. Sigma females are natural observers, deep thinkers, and exceptional listeners. They don't just hear people's words, they understand what's beneath them. They pick up on the emotions, the unspoken fears, the patterns others ignore. And because of this, people are drawn to them, unloading their problems, venting their frustrations, and seeking their wisdom. At first, she doesn't mind. She gives thoughtful advice, offers perspective, and helps people untangle the chaos in their minds. She assumes it's mutual, that when the time comes, those same people will be there for her. But she soon learns a brutal truth. Most people don't want a real exchange. They want a free therapist. She notices how the conversations are always one-sided, how people dump their emotions on her, feel lighter, then disappear, only to return when they need more. She realizes that when she needs a listening ear, suddenly everyone is too busy. When she needs support, the room is silent. When she struggles, no one even notices. And that's when something inside her shifts. She stops picking up the phone for people who only call when they need something. She stops giving energy to conversations that drain her. She stops offering wisdom to those who never actually apply it. She no longer accepts the role of the emotional dumping ground. People who once relied on her feel the change. The ones who were used to offloading their problems onto her are left staring at their own mess. They realize too late that she wasn't obligated to listen. She chose to. And now, that choice is gone. A Sigma female doesn't announce this shift. She doesn't complain, argue, or explain. She simply withdraws, redirecting all that energy back into herself. And the moment she stops caring, those who once depended on her presence finally understand what they took for granted. But by then, it's far too late. Number 9. They've learned that most people fear the truth. A Sigma female doesn't sugarcoat reality. She sees things as they are, not as people wish them to be. She values honesty over comfort, clarity over illusion, but life has taught her a harsh truth. Most people don't want the truth. They want reassurance. They want validation. They want a carefully crafted version of reality that doesn't challenge their illusions. At first, she tried. She spoke up when something didn't make sense. She pointed out contradictions, exposed lies, and held people accountable for their actions. Not out of cruelty, but because she believed people deserved the truth. She thought they would appreciate it, that they would want to grow. She was wrong. Instead of gratitude, she was met with resistance. Instead of appreciation, she faced defensiveness. Instead of growth, she watched people double down on their delusions. Over time, she realized, truth isn't just ignored, it's feared. People don't want to see themselves clearly because it forces them to confront their flaws, their mistakes, their limitations. And rather than face that discomfort, they lash out at the messenger. So now, she no longer wastes her breath. She keeps her wisdom to herself. She observes, but she does not interfere. She sees people's self-deception, their toxic patterns, their self-sabotage, but she doesn't step in to fix it. Because she understands now, you cannot save those who want to stay blind. She withdraws, not because she's given up, but because she knows her energy is better spent elsewhere. Instead of arguing with the deluded, she focuses on her own growth. Instead of trying to force change, she leads by example. And if people refuse to wake up, that's their choice, because the truth is powerful, but only for those ready to hear it. Number 10. They've been betrayed one too many times. A Sigma female doesn't trust easily. She doesn't hand out loyalty like cheap candy, and she doesn't assume people have good intentions just because they say they do. When she trusts, it's because she's chosen to, because she's seen enough to believe someone is worth it, and when she cares, she gives everything. Her time, her energy, her support, and her unwavering loyalty. But betrayal? Betrayal changes everything. It doesn't just hurt, it shifts something inside her. The first time she may forgive. The second she may try to understand. But after the third, the fourth, the fifth, she stops giving people the benefit of the doubt. She stops believing in second chances. She stops allowing herself to be fooled. And that's when she becomes untouchable. She doesn't lash out. She doesn't seek revenge. She doesn't waste energy proving a point. She simply shuts the door permanently. People who once had access to her heart, her mind, her world, they find themselves locked out with no way back in. And what's worse, she no longer cares. She doesn't sit around wondering why someone betrayed her. She doesn't replay conversations looking for clues she might have missed. She doesn't ask for closure because she is the closure. Once someone has proven they can't be trusted, they become irrelevant to her. This is why a betrayed Sigma female is unreachable. It's not that she's bitter, it's that she's done. She won't argue, she won't explain, she won't entertain apologies that come too late. She moves on without hesitation, without regret, without a second thought. Because once her trust is broken, there's no fixing it. No rebuilding, no starting over. And the most chilling part? She doesn't even hate you, she just doesn't acknowledge you anymore. Number 11. People mistake their kindness for weakness. A Sigma female isn't the type to make a scene. She's patient, observant, and deeply understanding. She gives people room to be themselves, to make mistakes, to grow. She doesn't demand immediate perfection. She values authenticity over appearances. But time and time again she learns a hard lesson. Kindness is often mistaken for weakness. People assume that because she doesn't lash out, she's easy to manipulate. That because she forgives, she'll tolerate anything. That because she listens, she'll always be available. But what they don't realize is that she sees everything. She notices the lies, the half-hearted efforts, the selfish intentions. She just chooses not to react until she decides she's had enough. And when that moment comes, she doesn't argue, she doesn't explain, she doesn't seek revenge, she just shuts off. It's a terrifying shift. One day, she's warm, supportive, and deeply invested. The next, she's ice cold, not out of bitterness, but because she's finally seen people for who they are. And once a Sigma female recognizes that her kindness is being used against her, she removes it. She no longer gives her time freely, no longer explains herself, no longer softens her words to protect someone else's feelings. She detaches, and that detachment is permanent. This is what people don't understand about Sigma females. Their kindness was never weakness, it was a choice, a gift. And the moment they take it for granted, they lose access to it forever. Because a Sigma female will never be someone's fool. She won't beg to be valued. She won't lower her standards just to keep the peace. And she certainly won't keep giving to people who only know how to take. The moment she realizes her kindness is being exploited, she does the one thing people never expect. She walks away and never looks back. Conclusion: the unstoppable power of not caring. When a Sigma female stops caring, it's not out of bitterness, it's out of clarity. She has seen the patterns, felt the disappointments, and understood the game for what it is. And once she reaches that level of awareness, there is no going back. She no longer begs to be understood. She no longer tolerates mediocrity. She no longer gives her energy to people who only take. And the moment she makes that shift, she becomes truly frightening. Not because she's cruel, but because she's free. Society expects women to be endlessly patient, to keep giving even when it drains them, to stay soft even when they've been hardened by experience. But Sigma females refuse to follow that script. They refuse to live on autopilot. They refuse to be controlled. So if you've ever felt like you care too much, about people who don't care back, about problems that aren't yours to fix, about opinions that don't even matter, take this as your sign to let go, to reclaim your time, your energy, your peace. Because the truth is, not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone deserves your kindness. Not everyone deserves your wisdom. Not everyone deserves you. And once you realize that, you become unstoppable. Not because you've turned cold, but because you've turned wise. Thank you for watching The Rare Gems, and God bless you.